We begin with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Checkmate. She says she's inclined to steer the Democratic Party caucus against impeaching President Trump. Yes, against impeachment, after weeks of Republicans claiming that House investigations into the Trump administration are a pretext for his removal.
Congressman Nadler decided to impeach the president the day the president won the election.
Trying to get the goods on this president in an apparent effort to impeach him.
A forum to tell stories and lie about the president of the United States so they can all start their impeachment process.
This is an attempt to injure our president and lay some sort of soft cornerstone for future impeachment proceedings.
There are members here with a singular goal in Congress: to impeach President Trump.
Laying the predicate for the Democrats and their crazy impeachment plans.
Speaking to the Washington Post magazine, Pelosi said, and this is kind of fantastic, "I'm not for impeachment. This is news. I've been thinking about this. Impeachment is so divisive to the country that unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path because it divides the country, and he's just not worth it." The speaker now using stronger language about a subject she addressed at the beginning of this Congress back in January.
You've said it would be sad and divisive for the country to pursue impeachment. Are you willing to rule it out?
Well, we have to wait and see what happens with the Mueller report. We shouldn't be impeaching for a political reason, and we shouldn't avoid impeachment for a political reason. So we'll just have to see how it comes.
The Washington Post reported at the time that when it comes to Pelosi, Trump has pulled back on his jabs. That is deliberate, aides and advisors said, because the president believes she would help protect him from impeachment, something he said she personally assured him of during the shutdown.
We even talked about that today. I said, why don't you use this for impeachment? And Nancy said, we're not looking to impeach you. I said, that's good, Nancy, that's good. But you know what? You don't impeach people when they're doing a good job.
Meanwhile, House members leading some of the investigations into the president agreed with Speaker Pelosi. Speaking to NBC News last night, House Intelligence Chair Adam Schiff and Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler told NBC News that the evidence is not there yet for impeachment. While House Financial Services Chairwoman Maxine Waters said she believed the Speaker had always been clear about her opposition to impeachment and agreed it would take Republicans, quote, who have the courage to do it. So let's all dig into this. I think, David Ignatius, this is a really brilliant move to make this very clear from the top, from Nancy Pelosi.
I think she's wise to let the facts, the case that Mueller brings when he finally finishes his report, drive this process and it not seem to be a political process led by the Democrats. I think that's sensible. You have to look, Mika, at what's happened since the midterms. The midterms were this moment where we thought, wow, there's a Democratic breakthrough. And since then we've had very unruly Democratic caucus. We've had Trump gaining little bits in the polls. And I think Pelosi's reading that, as she usually does, pretty sensibly. And so I think if Mueller comes with a strong report that she thinks will carry an impeachment process, she'll be right back on that theme. But otherwise, no.
So I love he's not worth it, Jeremy Bash, but I think this places everybody in the position of waiting to see if there is something that is worth it. What would be worth it?
Well, it depends what the definition of high crimes and misdemeanors are under the Constitution.
What's a high crime and misdemeanor that even the Republicans would agree with?
Well, the question is obstruction of justice is something involving him having subjected himself to leverage by the Russian Federation. Is that something that would even bring Republicans over to the side of those who want to see him impeached? I'm not sure, Mika, and I actually think the Speaker is smart to raise the bar, to keep the bar high. After all, under the constitutional system, the bar is high for conviction. You need to have a bipartisan vote to have somebody removed from office. So in some ways, she's just stating the fact that you need to have Republicans if this process is going to be meaningful.
And Yamiche, aren't they sort of, in some ways, I love this, I mean, especially Nancy Pelosi showing discipline as a leader. I think some of the freshmen need to watch this and watch how it plays out. Are they impeaching him without impeaching him? Are the investigations and what we're learning along the way doing the job?
I think that they're trying to chip away at his credibility, which of course has already taken big shots based on his own behavior at times.
Right.
But I think what Nancy Pelosi is doing is setting that bar really high and signaling to Republicans too. Look, if you see something when we can all agree as a body of Congress, this is evidence that really the president needs to go, then we can do that. But as a result, we don't have to rush to judgment. I also think that Nancy Pelosi is someone who's calculating. She's looking at 2020. She's looking at this deep bench and saying, we need to figure out our own stuff. We need to figure out messaging and figure out a vision to give to the American people so that they'll choose us over Trump. So I think that she's also focused on that and not wanting to get into this battle ahead of 2020.
And Democrats need a candidate who can win before they're there. And Katty Kay, I mean, you know, it's important. I think in many ways it would be much more important for the voters to decide this. And I think Pelosi is right to lead down that path. But I love this from the point of view of a female in power, of a woman leader. I think this move was strategically significant because sometimes you have to dial back in order to be able to move forward. You don't want to just push it all forward, all out front. Then you got nowhere to go. And this is pulling back in such a brilliant way. He's not worth it.
And it's kind of what we knew this was her position, right? Conversations I've had with Pelosi over the last 6 months, we knew she didn't want to go down the impeachment route unless there was bipartisan support. But putting it out this blankly is, as much as anything, a message to the other, actually many of them female freshmen in the party who've just come in and saying, okay, let's not talk about this. This becomes a big distraction. What are the two big distractions that the White House are trying to beat the Democratic Party up with at the moment? Impeachment and socialism. So let's take impeachment off the table. That takes something away from the White House. They can't talk to us about this. We've had a rough couple of weeks. Let's get focused back on what got them the House in the midterms. It was focusing on issues like healthcare. It was focusing on issues like jobs. Let's get back to focusing on those because they're trying to pass them, but it's all getting overshadowed.
There's also some dismissiveness there that you kind of have to acknowledge. President Trump, as much as he likes to beat up on the media, he also likes to watch himself. He likes to watch people talking about him, and he likes the idea of thinking of himself as this kind of orbit, this sun that everyone's rotating around and everyone's talking about. And for Nancy Pelosi to say, that guy in the White House, I can't even be worried about him. I'm trying to do my own thing. That has to drive the president a little nuts, that especially coming from this woman.
He's not worth it.
No.
Impeach me.
It absolutely drives him nuts. She would love to be the center of attention, whether it's good or bad. He loves it.
And he respects Nancy Pelosi in a way that he doesn't other people. So I think to hear it from her, I think stung a little.
It was fantastic. Again and again, Nancy Pelosi has proven that she is as clever as she is tough. I've talked about this before. She has now dismissed both the left's obsession with a dangerous and likely doomed effort to impeach Trump and Trump himself, driving him crazy. Pelosi basically told the Washington Post this man is not worthy of the office he holds, and you kind of have to work around him. And he's not worth dividing the country anymore. It's true. He's not. Based on what we know now, that she says, let's focus on having the voters retire Trump in 2020. A very patient, deliberate, smart move by the speaker. Jonathan Swan, how are Democrats reacting? What have we heard on Capitol Hill in terms of Nancy Pelosi's comments? But more importantly, I would like to point out the impeachment word, isn't it being used more by Republicans? Isn't this a great power play in terms of them trying to push the shrill part of the left forward? Yeah. Nancy Pelosi is pulling everything back, literally all the chips.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Republicans have been talking about it far more than Democrats have. And you saw a brief burst of Democrats, of a few prominent Democrats, Joaquin Castro and others, talk about impeachment after the BuzzFeed story, which has since been muddied and walked back a little bit. But none of the leaders have. I mean, you haven't seen Nadler or Pelosi or any of the leaders actually come out for impeachment. I think there's a really important point that needs to be made here, which is while most of the media attention has focused on a few freshman House Democrats who are very, very progressive, actually there are a lot of Democrats who are elected in Trump districts, and they're quite moderate. And, you know, I was on Fox on Sunday, and in the green room was Katie Hill from California, Trump district. And there's a lot of them. And they're not happy with some of the things that have happened so far. And Nancy Pelosi is trying to bring her caucus back on track. They've been quite distracted. And last week, when it was the big unveiling of H.R. 1, which was a huge, sweeping anti-corruption bill, the week was consumed with with this debate about anti-Semitism. So I think she's pulling it back and saying, let's just calm down, let's wait for the evidence to come out. And she doesn't want to get ahead of public opinion on this. She has said this privately, and she's sort of hinted at it publicly for the last 6 months. And I think Caddy's point is exactly right on this.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.